Today we're going to be doing an install of our short gusset traction bars on this 11 to 16 Ford long box power stroke back here. So this kit's going to fit all of the 08 and up Super Duty trucks for the single rear wheels. And we have a separate kit that's going to fit all of the dual rear wheels. The only difference being the under axle plate at the rear. So the kits are going to be the same price whether you want short gusset or long gusset. Today we're using our short gusset bars. The install is identical. So we're going to show you how to do the install with the short gussets, but again, same thing if you're doing the long gussets, and it's the same exact install if you're doing it on a dual rear wheel truck. The spacing's just a little different on the rear U-bolt, so we have a different under axle plate for those trucks. We're going to be going in with our under frame mounts that are included in this kit. This is going to fit with all amp steps, any S&B fuel tank, and then we've got all of our bushings over here, our couplers for the bars, so we'll show you how it all goes together next. So this is the 11 to 16 long bed here. A few things, we're going to end up removing this fuel tank skid plate because we're going to need to mount to the frame right around here. So the bars are going to fit between 50 and 84 inches long. So what we're going to do is take our tape measure and measure to the front of the rear axle and make sure, we're at like 77 inches right here. So we're going to be on the long end, which we knew, but we're going to need this flat section of frame right here is where I'm going to put the frame mount. So I'll get going on pulling the skid plate out of here and get this thing ripped off, and then we'll start installing the axle mounts first. So this is probably where we're going to land. I was test fitting against it. We kind of get tight to the fuel tank. It's going to be a pain to install the bolts there. So we have the length in the bars to land right in front of the fuel tank here, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to clamp this up to the frame just to get it in place and take one more measurement and make sure we're within that 84-inch mark. I've got the mount clamped in place right where I think it's going to be. I'm basically sucked as tight to the tank as I can be in the front here. With the S&B tank, there's a cutout specifically in the tank where this frame mount's going to land. So with the frame mount clamped in place, we're going to take one more measurement and just make sure bar length, which is going to come off the front of the under axle mount back here to right here is under 84 inches. I already did that. So I know we're good to go. I have a transfer punch. I'll transfer punch my holes here and then we'll start drilling. Just obviously make sure there's fuel lines in the frame rail on these trucks, which are up top, but and there's a wire loom right here that's riveted in. But all the trucks are a little different. Just make sure before you start drilling, if it's a C-channel frame, you know what's on the back side of that C-channel before it gets expensive really quickly. So we've got a bunch of clear areas here. I'll transfer punch my 4 3/8 holes here, start drilling those out with a 7/16 drill bit, and then I'll show you that once we have this thing bolted up. I've got these Astro bits. They're the hybrid step and actual bit. They work really well for these hardened frames. So I'm going to do some pilot holes first, and then we're going to step up to ultimately, the bolts are 3/8 bolts, and so I'm going to finish with a 7/16 hole size, which is right here. So we'll use that for all of our main holes. These work really well. They're on Amazon for like $100 and will save you a bunch of time, but any sharp drill bit will do the job. So.
Up to 7/16 now.
C-channel frame today, which is going to make this really easy. If you have a box frame, I'll put the video in right now showing how we use our pull-through bolt kits. It's the same hardware, you just use the pull wire. So I'm going to show you one more time here, because on this far enough away, it's faster for me to fish it than to try to fight it by hand. So we're going to push this out the end here. So our wire's going through our bracket, through the frame, out the end. Again, we're going to go first through the hole in the tab bolt and just put a little shape in the back of it so it can't go through there. And then we're going to start wrapping. And again, the more wraps, the better. And actually, if you hit every thread, the wire will stay closer to the bolt and let you pull it through easier. So that bolt's ready now. We'll pull it through. And it drops literally right into place. We'll pull down on it as much as we can. And then the wire comes out. I can easily go on the inside of this frame. So I've got all of my tab bolts dropped into place. So now we step back to the outside. Put the right frame mount on the right side. Helps if you have a second person on the inside. I'll do one first just to get started. So, washer. Nut. We can hang it on that. Washer nut. Bottom right here. So 9/16, and I went through and torqued all of this 3/8 hardware to 33 foot-pounds. At this point, you're gonna move over to the passenger side and do the same thing. So you can either measure from like a body mount is the easiest way, or from a radius arm drop to the front of the bracket, and then just align that on the passenger side. And make sure that your bracket lands in the exact same spot. We typically do driver's side first because there's more stuff over here to miss with the fuel tank and everything else. And then we'll move passenger side and make sure, align it perfectly, drill the holes and get that on. Once that's done, we'll move back to the rear U-bolts. Passenger side mount mounted. We're gonna go back and do the U-bolt under axle mounts here. So I've got a 15/16 socket. We're going to go ahead and push our plate into place. Both these are the same left to right. And we'll get our nut started again. So included in the frame mount box are going to be these bushings and this compression limiter. These are going to press into the rear here, slide in easily, and then the compression limiter is going to go inside the bushings like so. and then that'll be ready to receive the bar. I'm gonna leave this 1/2" bolt back here, and then you can do the same thing on the other side. So the bars are the same, passenger to driver side. I've gone ahead and thrown one of the logos on here with just the little Allen hardware. Once we have the bushing installed in the rear, I'm gonna take that 1/2" bolt I set aside, and we're gonna go ahead and hang the bar on the rear mount, which is pretty straightforward here. Like so. And then we're gonna put something up front that's soft and let the bar sit on that, like this hammer. And then we'll get working on sliding the front section into this next. So we're gonna prep the couplers before we slide the front section into the rear section of the bar. And so there's a big O-ring, which goes in the big end of the coupler. And then we'll put 2 small O-rings in. This is gonna keep water from getting in between the bars, in between the front and rear sections. And keep it from scratching the paint when we slide it over. Okay, so with this all done, I'm gonna grab a front bar. We're gonna slide this coupler onto the front bar. And we're only gonna slide it a little bit. We don't wanna slide it too high because in case it damages the paint, we don't want it higher up the bar than when the bar is gonna be fully extended on the truck. So we'll kind of slide it up as we put it in, and that way we kind of see where it's gonna land in the truck. We can slide it backwards and cover some of the paint, but only so much. I'll show you what I mean by that. So once we're in the truck here, we're gonna go ahead and feed the front section into the rear and come backwards with the whole assembly until we're right around the front of the mount here. And then I move my soft item further forward so I can set the bar on it. And then I'm gonna get my bushing stacked for the front. So at the front, we've got a large bushing and a small bushing. The small bushing goes towards the front of the truck. Large bushing is gonna face the bar. We've got our O-rings installed on these bushings. It's gonna keep water from getting in between them too, and from them tearing in the frame mount. And then we've got our large 7/8 bolt and our washer. That's gonna come through there. Now, I'm gonna slide the bar back so I can get it started. And then we're actually going to torque this 7/8 bolt with an impact as the next step to lock this front bar in place position-wise before we start working on putting our coupler in. We're going to use an 1 5/16 socket here, and it's best to use an impact because it'll help stopping this bar from spinning. Okay, and I felt the bolt, the threads on the bolt will bottom out, basically, the shoulder of the bolt will, because it's a partially threaded bolt, and that's gonna set the compression on our bushings right here. So with that done, we can now move back and start working on getting our coupler in place. What I mean by bottoming out, it's a partially threaded bolt, so once we run out of threads here, the bolt won't spin anymore. Now, that's conveniently, we designed the bushing so that that's at the point where there's the perfect amount of bushing preload. So as right as we compress these bushings the amount we want to, the bolt bottoms out and then works as a compression limiter on the bushings. Next up, these are our pilot holes that are already laser cut into the tube here. I'm gonna transfer punch both of these. There's one on the back side as well. Very important to drill these both from the outside. So do not try to drill all the way across. The parallelism of this hole is very important as we're about to basically put this whole bolt through it. So If you have a fuel tank or something on the other side and you can't get a drill to it, it's the same hole on the back side. The best thing will be to drill the first one and mark the second one, and then put something through that first one, drop the bar down once you have a pin through here, and then drill the back one. So thankfully today, and in most cases, you're gonna have enough room to drill both. This is only really an issue on the driver's side with the fuel tank. But yeah, very important that both of these land in the exact same spot, and it's the correct spot with this all torqued down, because this hole dictates the length of the bar. So now I'm gonna start drilling, and we're gonna drill the front and the back side out to 1/2 inch. Stepping up to a 1/2 inch drill bit now. This is our bolt that's going to come through the bars. And the way this is going to work is we're going to drill out, I have a 1/2 inch hole on both sides right now. I'm going to drill this front side to a 5/8 inch hole, and that's going to allow us to push this chromoly sleeve into that hole. And then on the back side is going to be on the other side of this coupler here. There's I'll spin this around so you can see. This hole has the area for the washer and the nut, so that'll be on the back. And this is essentially going to pinch the two tube walls together and make it a solid unified tube on the back. And then at the front, it's going to be press fit with both of the holes that are the same 5/8 inch size here. So then it can't slide either way. So we're locking it at the front via the OD of the bushing, and then at the rear by clamping the two together with the 1/2 inch hardware here and this stainless steel ARP stud here, or bolt. So we're going to drill one more hole, this front one only, not the rear, just the front, to 5/8 inch. At this point, you're going to clean up any flash, any shavings that are still there. You can put some touch-up paint on that if you're in an area where they salt the roads or you don't want it to rust. Then you're going to slide your coupler back carefully. Make sure that O-ring stays in the O-ring groove. There it goes. Till we're centered on the main hole here. And then we can tap in our stainless bolt and use make sure we line up with the back side. So now I can get my hardware started on the rear here. So once you have the sleeve pushed through with the bolt and then your 1/2 inch hardware on the rear, this bolt's going to get torqued to 100 foot-pounds with the 12.916 socket on this side, 3/4 inch socket on the back. And then we'll come through and torque our big 7/8 for the final pass up to 125 foot-pounds. And then the final step will be to go to the rear where our 1/2 inch bolt is. We're going to use 2 3/4 inch. And then we'll torque this rear 1/2 inch bolt to 60 foot-pounds.